1904 was a busy year for growing America. It was the year that Longacre Square in Midtown Manhattan was renamed Times Square after the New York Times. The ice cream cone was invented at the World's Fair in St. Louis, and further out in the Young West, and with much less fanfare, the city of Kennewick was incorporated. The vote, 53 for, 3 against. From its earliest days, Kennewick was home to farmers and ranchers who roughed out meager livings from the area's dry land. Businessmen set up shop with storefronts advertising everything from farming supplies to clothing, and the Courier paper served up the news of the day.
Courier Reporter was our paper, and that came out weekly. And they gathered all the information they could of who Aunt Bess's Uncle Joe was here with them for a week, and that type of stuff. How many chickens were born out in Fred's poultry farm. It was real homey paper.
It wasn't all work and no play. The citizens organized sports teams. Social groups such as the Coyote Club were formed by a group of prominent Kennewick bachelors who knew how to howl. Railroads continued expanding their lines along the Columbia River to haul grain and supplies. Ferries and riverboats also provided the critical transportation for people and goods between Pasco and Kennewick. But still, by 1940, Kennewick's population was less than 2,000 people. Irrigation farming in Kennewick transformed the little town into orchards and hop fields. Its remarkable range of produce included peaches, apricots, grapes, alfalfa, potatoes, and even peanuts.
This ground can grow anything with water. Without water, it doesn't grow anything but sagebrush. And farming was it. This was a farm town.
According to a special birthday edition of the Columbia Courier, thousands of fruit trees grew where once jackrabbits sported undisturbed on a fully 5,000 acres under cultivation. And the Horse Heaven Hills began demonstrating that it was good wheat country.
Farming was the life, and if farms didn't go, town people didn't go.
The construction of Grand Coulee Dam and the accompanying Columbia Basin project in the early 1940s provided valuable irrigation water, electricity, and jobs that helped give new life to a region already hit hard by the Great Depression.
Farmers, and my folks included, lost. My folks lost both their farms, and that was the reason we moved into town, was they had no other place to go, and they found an empty house and we could get into it.
In spite of the dam, Kennewick residents retreated to rowboats and watched as their homes and their businesses were inundated when the Columbia River overflowed its banks due to heavy mountain runoffs in the spring of 1948.
Wasn't expected. It came clear up to Main Street, the water. They had to go around by Horse Heaven to get to Hanford to work. The town was flooded for nearly 6 months.
In 1943, the government established the Hanford Nuclear Reservation. Thousands of workers poured onto the scene, causing Kennewick to experience massive growth.
We called it the invasion.
Before Hanford, Kennewick was a little family town. And as Hanford and all them come in, it got to be a metropolitan.
Men and women from across the country moved to Kennewick, many starting and raising their families here. From school to work to socializing, residents passed the time at popular community hangouts.
One of my earliest recollections was going skating at the skating rink above the Washington Hardware. Mr. and Mrs. Whittemore had it, and it was the one social, physical outlet we had. And in order to pay for entry into the skating rink, I went to work at the Roxy Theater as an attendant and wore their satin little hostess outfits, and we escorted everybody at that point in time to a seat in the theater with our little flashlights.
Up until I was about 8, I was able to get in for a nickel because I was small, and Almadine Wyson sold the tickets, and she knew me, so.
We used to go to the drive-in theaters, and a whole carload, even some of them was hiding down in between the seats, and we'd get in for $1.
In the early days when we were growing up in school, we had a great rivalry with Pasco. We always had big bonfires before any game with Pasco and night parades going in and out of the theater in downtown Kennewick, running up and down the streets hollering and carrying on like a bunch of banshees.
Growing up, actually Zips used to be the big hangout. It was Zips and it was the Arctic Circle.
There was Max's Stop and Go, the A&W, and we'd make a route up through Kennewick Avenue, through the A&W, and Max Stop and Go, down through Spanky's on Avenue C, over to Pasco, to the A&W over there, and back around.
A rite of passage for most Kennewick residents was crossing the Green Bridge.
The Green Bridge was wonderful. You know, that's an adventure, the Green Bridge was. And my parents started a furniture business, so we had these delivery trucks, and we would take the delivery trucks over the Green Bridge when I was 16. And you know, the goal was to not take the side mirror off the vehicle with the oncoming traffic. And it was an adventure.
You had to be very careful driving over that. You didn't want to stick your arm too far out the window because you know, you could get hit from either side. And there was a few times when some real not very smart people, but at the time growing up, they were kind of brave people, I guess. They would pass once in a while on that bridge, and that's when the passengers would generally close their eyes and hope for the best.
We had some passers, you know, some energetic folks. We've always had energetic motorists, and so every once in a while somebody would consider 25 miles an hour obviously too slow and would pass on the Green Bridge. You know, that, again, that's just something that you see on TV, hopefully not while you're driving your own vehicle.
It was nothing to walk across that bridge. And I got my first real kiss as a young, sophisticated woman on that bridge. I remember it to this day, but that didn't mean I wanted that bridge to stay there forever.
You don't want to meet a potato truck on the Green Bridge. See, there's some people that, I mean, and that's instilled in the community, and so why would we build a new bridge that's safer? We've managed to survive this one, which was, you know, that's awesome.
The only thing about Kennewick that hasn't changed in the past 100 years is the wind.
I guess the best memory of Kennewick was seeing some of the dust storms come in. And when we got one from the north, we knew it was going to be a goodie, but we had lots of dust. And that's pretty well gone. Nobody's seen a dust storm for a long time like we used to have.
And the wind does always blow in the spring, kicked up the dust, and so lots of people decided even so much an hour wasn't worth the dust blowing.
And then all of a sudden, all these people came from all over the country. Some stayed, some didn't. Some just came to town, the wind was blowing, they turned around and left.
It's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
My first boat race was at the tender age of 13 months old. I don't remember it, of course, but my mom tells me the story that she takes her 13-month-old baby down to the boat races. And that was July 20th, 1969. Besides Dean Chenoweth winning in the Mears Special, that was also the day that man landed on the moon for the first time. So in between heats, they were announcing how the Apollo lunar mission was going.
Hydroplane races have become both tradition and religion. Kennewick has officially played host to the races since 1966. Names like Hanauer and the late Muncie and Little have achieved near legendary status.
I think my fondest memory of growing up in Kennewick is probably the summer of 1977. The end of July, I got to go down to the pits at the boat races, and I got to go walk straight up to the boats, and I picked my favorite one, the Atlas Van Lines, the Blue Blaster. And the legend of racing was Bill Muncie. And Bill Muncie was standing there with his big leather cowboy hat on in the 100-degree sun, and he picked me up by my shoulders, put me right in the cockpit of the boat, and I got to sit in the cockpit of Atlas Van Lines. I felt like I was going 150 miles an hour just sitting there. I don't think it gets any better for a 9-year-old growing up in Kennewick than that.
Now, 50,000 fans line the shores of the Columbia River to cheer on their favorites while lining the community coffers with $3 million in revenue during the late July weekend. Thousands of volunteers are responsible for coordinating the event's massive preparation, operations, and cleanup.
My first boat race, I went down to the park the night before the boat races, and I got a real education on what was going on in the park, let's put it that way.
And no mention of the boat races could be complete without the Kennewick Man. Discovered by two fans during the 1996 boat races, these controversial remains trace some of man's earliest presence in North America as far back as 9,200 years. With a population of nearly 60,000, Kennewick is the largest of the three cities making up the Tri-Cities. It has become the region's economic and industrial center.
The business was started in '24, so it's 80 years old this year. And we feel very, very fortunate that we've survived. However, it's surprising there's a lot of three-generation stores in Kennewick. Washington Hardware is one I can think of. Muller's Funeral Home is one I can think of. Bunch Finnegan down on Columbia Avenue. It's surprising how many stores have been here a long, long time.
Downtown Kennewick again has a heritage, and as we move along in a revitalization effort, I think it's important to try to maintain the heritage aspect and the historical value of downtown. From a philosophical viewpoint, I think downtowns bring more to a community than just some place to shop.
More important than where we've been is, where are we going?
We've started as a community that largely was built because of a war effort. And we talk about diversification, about what we're going to do post-Cold War. And the community has a big challenge ahead of it, particularly in the next 10 or 20 years. I think that what I've seen, this community has always had that can-do spirit, and that this community will be thriving and be a metropolitan part of Washington and southeastern Washington, and be could be the best city. No, I'd say even probably be the best city in Washington in 100 years.
Kennewick is just booming. It's just growing, but yet we still have the small town atmosphere.
To see our community grow and keep growing has been wonderful, and to be a part of it has been great.
We got to instill in our community's youth the sense of pride, the sense of ownership, and because someday it's going to be theirs.